we have Ameet, who's calling back from New York. And this really has been an LGBTQ episode.
It really has.
Hi.
I'm so sorry. I mean to like turn it into a
Ameet,
no, you're good.
Yeah. Ameet, and I'm glad that we're talking to you, but I also want to be clear that if people are going, how come you're only picking these callers? Because you're the people who called. If people want to talk about other things, they need to call in. So we're glad that you called in, though. Sometimes things just take on that theme. So what's going on? What do you think, Fee? Should I read this out? Maybe I should read this out.
Yeah.
How can I have a productive conversation with someone who has made subtle transphobic statements in front of me? What should my role be as I attempt to be an ally?
Oh my goodness. This is such a beautifully phrased question. You have like a follow-up. You clearly know your way around these shows. Ameet, thank you for giving us such a gorgeous...
I'll be honest. It was kind of a stream of consciousness that your call screeners kind of like distilled into something meaningful.
Oh my gosh.
We have wonderful call screeners.
Yes,
I'm
indeed.
so grateful.
Ameet, give us a little bit more context.
Yeah. So I was at the gym this week, and I have a person who shows up around the same time as me, and fairly senior person, knows what they're doing, and they happen to reference a particular figure in the fitness industry who happens to be a trans woman. And over the course of this entire conversation, he made allusions to the fact that she was trans and also dead named her multiple times while intentionally knowing, like I know for a fact that he knows who this person is because he has commented about her name, right? And I did my part of like saying she every time like he misgendered her, and like I also said while I was responding I tried to use her real name, and I feel like it kind of fell on deaf ears. This is not a person I'm like super close to, and at the same time it's a public location, so I didn't want to be super confrontational or anything.
Yeah.
And we were talking about a third person, so I didn't feel like, I don't know, like I felt like I might be kind of like speaking for someone else, and I don't know, just wanted to get your thoughts on how I can approach that conversation and make them see a little bit more on the compassionate, understanding side.
That is a great question, and you honestly did exactly what I would have suggested that you do, which is make them feel uncomfortable by being correct, if that makes sense. So like I wouldn't want to make any assumptions about this person, right, without knowing them a little bit more. And I definitely wouldn't want to say, oh, well, like they know what dead naming is, or they understand why it might be hurtful. So there's always that level of like, okay, we've had this conversation before, now it's intentional, versus like this person maybe is older, maybe doesn't know many trans people, if any, that are out to them. Like we really can't worry about that. That's on them. However, a really good thing to try doing is exactly what, Ameet, you have done, which is, when Eric and I go somewhere and I am misgendered, Eric knows that I prefer not to be like, excuse me, no, that's not my gender, please use they, them, and not she, her. I just don't normally feel like that's something that I am comfortable doing for me. But Eric knows that a really good way to counteract that and show up for me is to refer to me in the third person randomly and use they. And the people who care will catch on, and the people who don't care, I don't really care to correct them because that's good information that maybe they're not needed in my life or need to be super close with. So I think you did as much as you can without investing more time and energy into building a relationship around education with this person. And I don't know if that's something you want to do. It's not something that's required of you for sure. I think you handled it perfectly. And I think that even while it felt like it fell on deaf ears this time around, if more people did what you did to that person and just subtly used the correct pronouns, used her correct name, it would start to sink in, because we are mirroring animals, right? We mirror each other. We feel awkward when we are the minority in a situation, or like we are holding an opinion that other people aren't holding. It can be very uncomfortable. And so the discomfort of having to take that person out of one box and put her into another box is going to be outweighed by the discomfort of keeping her in that box while everyone else has her in the correct one, right? So it's really just a matter of understanding that it's coming from a place of discomfort for them, most likely, and saying, okay, you are clearly engaging with this discomfort and choosing comfort over discomfort selfishly, right? How do I make it more uncomfortable for you to be wrong than to be correct, right? Because there's going to be discomfort on some level. But if you can be like, hey, that's good. And like positive affirmation is great too. Like, oh, hey, like you used my pronouns today and I really appreciate it. Or like you asked me a thing and didn't assume anything about, this or that. Like that was really awesome. Thank you. And just
the last server at a restaurant who asked V for their pronouns and used them.
Didn't even ask. Just looked at me and knew, and I felt so seen.
V tipped the bill.
Oh, wow.
V tipped the bill. It's like, V took the bill amount and then made that the tip as well. It'll do well. As a partner, as a supportive partner, I would have different advice. I appreciate you speaking up, because
and that's literally all it is my perspective. I'd be curious what you thought.
Well, number one, for the people that I do care about, when they do use the correct pronouns, maybe after the conversation, I'll pull them aside and go, hey, that made me really happy. And I know that V felt seen, and that means a lot to me. Thank you. So that support has worked. I've also talked with my feet, and people who have just been obstinate when it comes to that. I just stopped engaging with them. There are people who I talked to, that I met via Facebook or, through different connections with atheist groups, who really were just dead set on invalidating any conversations about gender until, the end of time. And I just stopped talking to them. And when they were like, hey, what's going on? I was like, I don't feel comfortable talking to you. Like, it's not interesting or fun for me, and you obviously don't care, so you get to be alone. I didn't say it that way, but I was like, I'm not interested in a relationship with you anymore. And having somebody exit their life because of something they did can be an eye-opener for some people, and that may lay some groundwork. And then if it's somebody you really don't care about, V is right, you don't owe them. But at the same time, if you're not personally invested in them, then making them feel like a piece of shit can maybe help with family who do care about them, who are worried about like them bringing it. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, Uncle so-and-so is a real piece of shit, but I don't want to say anything and make Christmas uncomfortable. You being an absolute bastard to that person might make their family feel more comfortable come Christmas. So maybe it's an all approaches type of thing. I don't feel like you're doing the wrong thing, I guess. But get a feel for where you are and what you can and are willing to do. And also remember that being an ally doesn't mean you're everyone's ally. Some people will say, oh, well, as an ally, I think you should do X. And somebody else says, well, to be an ally, I think you should do the exact opposite. If you try and make everyone happy, you're never going to get anything done. But getting feedback, listening, talking to people, and understanding what you did in this call, I think is crucial and does make a big difference. That's what I have to add, which is exactly the opposite of what you said. So I apologize, I guess. I don't know. I don't apologize.
The opposite. It's just another perspective.
Yeah.
Ameet, what are your thoughts?
No, I was just thinking if it were better to, just say nothing and move on instead of, I don't know, like trying to broach this conversation with someone who's practically a stranger. And it's really weird because this man at the gym was very respectful of this bodybuilder's achievements, but so dismissive and disrespectful of her gender. Mm-hmm. So I was just like, well, yeah, you don't really respect the person then.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird kind of disconnect that happens. What I would say ultimately is if you feel like this person might just need that extra little like nudge in the right direction, a good way to start that conversation and see if they're interested, because if they're not, frankly, it's useless, it would be to ask the question, right? And be super blatant about it and be like, hey, I'm just wondering, you seem to respect this person a whole lot. Why aren't you using her name? And like, just have him answer that. And it might be, I keep forgetting and I try to do better, but like, it's just so in my brain. Like, oh, okay, cool. Well, do you want me to like next time we talk about it, let me know. We can tackle that. Or if it's, I don't think trans people are real, then you can be like, oh, okay, cool. You're clearly an asshole. Bye. Like there are different responses that he could give that would give you a clue. A, if he wants to have that conversation with you, which, frankly, he might not. Or B, if he does, what kind of conversation that would be. And if it's something that you feel comfortable having yourself, because you can't be expected to prove the existence of an entire group of people to somebody you don't really know. But if all it needs is just a little bit of that nudge, then yeah, if you feel comfortable doing it, then that's a great first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
I needed people in my life who were gracious and patient to help me learn things like that at the start. And when I was asked the question, hey, Eric, do you need some help when it comes to, referring to people by preferred pronouns? I said, you know what? I'd actually really love that. And when I first kind of got pronouns wrong, they were like, oh, Eric, here's the correct pronouns, long before you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, fuck, I'm an awful person. They're like, no, you asked me to help. So, and it was just through gracious, kind people who were in my life who were like, hey, just in casual conversation, if that comes up, I'll bring something up and let you know, flag it. That had a huge impact on the way that I was able to engage with other people throughout the rest of my life. And I'm forever grateful. Yeah. Give them the opportunity if you want. Yeah. Ameet,
Awesome.
Hopefully this was a useful conversation to you. This was definitely on brand for the day's calls.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you for answering my questions.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Bye.